Not all siege defenses are the same, but they generally follow this flow. You immediately count how many bow samurai the enemy army has, and then resist the urge to smash your monitor.
That wasn't as enjoyable as I thought it would.
You start wishing the game was sentient, because that way you could at least let it know how much you hate it. Jokes aside, in the Sengoku campaign it's far too easy to have your units get whittled down while your attention is elsewhere. And that brings us to the first key to mastering siege defenses. Remember, young Padawan, the fortress tempts you with false security. Indeed, the real enemies are the fortresses we made along the way. Victory lies beyond the walls. Enemy units typically spawn in a dispersed manner, leaving them open to divide and conquer tactics. You want to prioritize enemy melee infantry and the general, while reducing your exposure to arrow fire as much as possible. The type of map you have will of course heavily determine the viability of these options. Some fort maps have steep gradients surrounding the fortress, giving you the advantage in the melee, and some maps will also have a decent amount of tree cover from arrow fire. This image shows you the type of fort you'll find in each and every province. Long story short, these maps were not created equal. Guns transform siege defenses. A single unit of Matchlock Ashigaru can reliably net over 500 kills, and the more expensive types can break 1000 before running out of ammunition, and they do that regardless of the target. Don't forget to turn on guard mode to ensure they keep firing even when the enemy soldiers are trickling onto the walls. Even though superior firearm units take quite a while to research, they bring so much firepower to your army that it is more than worth the wait. You could also go for imported matchlocks. But anyway, the one drawback is they're outranged by the very bows we all know and hate. How do you get around this? If you have a multi-tiered fort, it can be as simple as placing your guns in the innermost level, leaving them out of reach of enemy fire. Fun fact about AI archers: once they start climbing walls, they almost never fire until the entire unit has completed the climb. If you're in a single level fort, you can place your guns at the farthest corner from the enemy archer contingents, wait for them to start climbing, and then rush your guns over to the wall. This little exploit is also handy for keeping your other unit types sheltered, and bonus for forcing enemy archers into a melee, where they suck. Well, most of the time. While guns can score disgusting kill counts, that's not the main reason to bring them. That would be the morale malus. Any unit under gunfire will get this flat penalty, regardless of how many men are actually hit, which is why even Iko-Iki Matchlock Ashigaru are quite useful. Bad guns are better than no guns. A winning strategy is to engage enemy units in the melee in front of the walls, while bullets rain down on them. Not many units can withstand getting frontally charged, struck in the flank by cavalry, and shot to bits from above all at once. They'll break and spread panic among other enemy units as well. It's the perfect recipe for chain routes and one that you can find across this channel. It's therapeutic and worth hitting the sub button for. Speaking of guns, follow the samurai. Despite using the same siege maps, they function quite differently. For one, the best thing about Follow the Samurai is it mostly deletes bows from the game. The ones that are left get obliterated by artillery and skirmishers. Remember, younglings, their ancestors committed unspeakable atrocities in the 16th century. This is the price they must pay.
The time has come. Execute Order 66.
Without having to worry about bows, you have more options for unit placement inside the fort, allowing you to line every wall with guns in a defense in depth strategy. Line infantry are great for this role since they have both decent kill power and are expendable. If you have competent melee infantry like Yarikachi, you can play more aggressively outside the fort. Yarikachi are one of the best units in Fall of the Samurai because they will beat almost anything in a melee, and unlike Spear Levy, they have the morale to withstand friendly fire and flanking attacks. But before the battle even begins, you need to assess the quality of your fortifications. Are your gates broken? Good.
I understand.
Are your gates intact? Burn them down.
What?
A quirk about Follow the Samurai is that modern units like Levy Infantry and Line Infantry will opt to march through broken or captured gates instead of climbing the walls. The traditional units didn't get the memo, reusing the AI script from the Sengoku campaign. Old habits die hard, I guess. This ironically makes it much easier to defend against modern units, as they can be lured to fight in a choke point while being gunned down from every side, and when one routs, the others will soon follow. I hope for your sake the AI does not bring a half stack of Shogutai though. Since guns require a direct line of sight to fire, you can take cover within the castle grounds and force a melee, or set up overlapping zones of fire, even more devastating with kneel fire. Avoid giving attack orders to your men, you're better off letting them select their own targets. Do this in the Tenshu and you won't have to worry about your lines breaking. If the enemy army has naval fire support, be sure to steer clear of your towers. these will be prioritized over your units. AI artillery will prioritize your better units such as line infantry or kachi, which you can actually use to your advantage by hiding these units behind obstructions, wasting their ammunition. If you think artillery are going to be a major issue, you can assign a unit of cavalry or yarikachi to take them out while the main enemy force is committed to the fort. These next parts apply to both campaigns. Unlike field battles, units are scripted to route the battlefield along a few set paths and won't deviate from them. Obviously, this is great for racking up as many kills as possible and saving yourself the trouble of a tough follow-up fight. But there's another use for this. The routing soldiers will inflict a morale debuff on any allied units they pass by. Those few units you routed at the start of the battle could serve you well until the end, depending on enemy unit placements and your timing. Lastly, dealing with reinforcing enemy armies. They'll enter the map from the same cardinal direction as they were relative to the settlement on the campaign map. If the second army was, for example, west of your settlement, they will enter the battle map from the west, or the left side of your minimap. There are a couple of ways to go about dealing with them. The most straightforward is to defend against the first army, then prepare to deal with the reinforcements. This works best on mountain fort maps, since the slopes will slow down their advance. In many cases, you won't be able to rout the first stack before their allies arrive, leaving you in a tough spot. This is why it pays to be proactive. You can instead opt to devote most of your units to meeting the enemy reinforcements near their spawn point. As they will be entering the map piecemeal, you'll have the advantage in positioning and numbers, and the kill counts will increase your men's experience, making them stronger for the remainder of the battle. Again, time is of the essence. Whatever units you left in the fort usually won't be enough to defend it. Their purpose is to buy you time for you to rout the reinforcements and then rescue the garrison. So what units should you leave in the fort? Guns and bows are obvious, and as always they should be in guard mode, and it's typically best to leave them in the tenshu to keep them from breaking, in turn buying you more time. Garrison units are also a prime choice for guarding the keep, since the defending units will typically be taking the heaviest losses and these men are expendable. If these units still aren't enough, consider adding a unit of strong melee infantry, one that will be used to strike at wavering attackers. To put it simply, more units in the fort equals more time for your outside force to do their job. Of course, you don't want to overdo it, as that will be at the expense of your offensive army. There isn't always one correct path, and it can be a tough balancing act. That's it for the major points. There are a few minor tricks that I'll go through quickly. On the campaign side of things, it's not always a good idea to put as many units in the settlement as possible. You won't get your free garrison units if you don't leave slots for them. They're quite handy as cannon fodder, and higher tiered settlements will spawn solid melee units, or competent line infantry in Fall of the Samurai's case. At the same time, you may want to leave your cavalry units outside the settlement, since they can more easily cover ground on the battle map, and are much better at fighting outside the fort anyway. Where should you upgrade forts? Not on the front line. It may sound counterintuitive. While improved defenses are handy, these castles will be your main recruitment centers, and therefore losing them will be a hefty blow to your campaign progress, especially in the early mid-game where you'll be limited to 1 or 2 upgraded settlements. Treat them as recruitment centers first and foremost, and then a defensive strongpoint if need be. Use the provinces surrounding them to halt or delay enemy advances. Even if you fail to defeat the invading army, the damage done by killing their general and more expensive units on the way will give you a much better fighting chance when they do arrive at your upgraded castle. Losing a battle is fine so long as you win the war. By the late game, you'll have enough funds and troops to take more liberty upgrading settlements. Another tip is regarding encampments. They improve replenishment and can offer upgrades to your free garrison units, and the barracks build path will give you a whopping 20% replenishment boost. In battle, this gives you more room for error, and these upgrades are invaluable in allowing a castle to withstand multiple successive sieges. Faster replenishment also means less downtime before a counterattack, so you can quickly roll back the enemy forces and regain your buffer provinces. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can check out my channel for more tutorials, my Against All Odds series, and multiplayer replays with casting, among other things. A lot of this work would not be possible without our awesome community, so hop on into Discord and join the RTS fun. If you'd like to support the channel further, subscribe to my Patreon and get access to exclusive videos, and do check out the merch store. All money will go towards buying more LEGO sets, the building of which will be done in live streams on this channel. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!